So let's just start with simple. What is the EdChoice Voucher Program? It's just a state legislated program for provides tuition assistance to families who are looking to send their children to non-public schools, as the slide says. In its simplest form, that's what it is. From there, it gets very complicated in terms of what determines if a student is eligible and how is that funded, which is the important piece of this. So we want to go through that with you this afternoon. It's been in existence for a while in various forms. There are really two EdChoice programs, so now comes the complicated part. There's the income eligible portion, which in its initial year, I think in 2013, it was open to rising incoming kindergartners, and then a grade level was being added a year sequentially until last year it was up to grade 5, and then in this change in legislation they just opened it up, went straight to K-12. The income eligible is for families living at 200% below the federal poverty level. So if a family meets that threshold, regardless of school performance, they're eligible for an EdChoice scholarship from the state. And Nicole will talk a little bit in a while about how that's funded. So that's one form that's been there for a while. It's income-based. It's intended to give people in poverty more school choice. You could be in the best school in Ohio. If you meet that threshold, you're eligible for that voucher. I think currently we have one student? One student.
Not under this.
No, I'm sorry, under the other one, sorry. The other program, the regular program, is based on school performance, and the state ODE publishes a list of designated schools, which this is where everything has gotten very heated in Ohio in the last couple of months. The state, through ODE, produces a list of designated schools based on criteria. Criteria for being on the list for designated school has changed significantly in the last couple of months and broadened widely the number of schools we're going to talk about in Ohio that are now on the designated list. And that's where we want to look at most. So we now have broadened the criteria, eased the criteria, and increased the number of schools in Ohio that are now on this underperforming list, including schools here in Westerville and across Central Ohio. The big problem is the changes in the criteria, not only were they done in kind of a behind closed doors, last minute, no public hearing manner, it was also done in a time period which gave school districts no opportunity to address the performance standards in a time not to become on the list. So we were all functioning under the old rules, chasing the old rules, and doing fine there. They changed the rules and didn't give us time to catch up with the change in rules, and that's really where the problems have happened. No input from the community. So here's the changes. Beginning in FY13, the first year, buildings with a D or F grade, this gets fun when you try to follow the bouncing ball. If you had a D or F grade for both the performance index and the value added component, notice it says and, you're designated an EdChoice school. Under current law, a building is eligible for EdChoice if it meets one of the following criteria. So the big change that happened from the original design in FY13 to the modified for the new list for next year is going from and to or. You used to have to hit more than one standard in order to fall on the list. Now you just have to hit one of the standards, and even those the criteria have changed. These are some of the criteria. We'll talk about those that impact Westerville here in a moment. So that's been the big issue with the change in criteria. So the criteria that affects Westerville schools the most, about half of our buildings who are now on the designated list fall in the designated list for the Improving At-Risk K-3 Readers standard on this. This measurement, which is on the report card, you can see it on your school report card, measures elementary students who are not on track to meet the third grade reading guarantee. This is a progress measure. So every year at the start of the year, we give our kindergartners, first, second, and third graders a pre-test in reading, and at the end of the year, a post-test. And in between, depending on how they did in the pre-test, they may have been required to be on a reading intervention plan. Depending on how they did with that, we got a letter grade for this. That's different than the third grade reading guarantee score. The third grade reading guarantee score is what you get at the end of third grade that determines that you've met the third grade reading guarantee standard. Follow me? So one is, how are you doing on your reading with interventions in kindergarten, first, second, and third? How are you doing on your way to the finish line? The actual finish line is the third grade reading guarantee.